Studios original.
Hey web crawlers, this is part 2 of our Elisa Lam episode, so if you haven't heard part 1, then stop, go back, and click on episode 1. Then come back here. Okay, on with the show.
Water from the tap, something the Cecil Hotel doesn't want you to see. No showering, no washing your hands, definitely no drinking of the water.
There was something wrong. The pressure in the water was terrible.
It's kind of odd, the whole damn thing.
There was a dead body in the water you were using and drinking?
When you turned the tap on, the water was coming black first.
The public health department is thoroughly testing the water now.
Hey guys, welcome to Web Crawlers. On today's episode, we're going to go back to Elisa Lam. We thought we were done until our producer left us some hot tips that we needed to keep sleuthing about. Here's some interviews that we needed to get on tape.
So today we're going to talk to David Farrier. He is the director of the documentary Tickled and Netflix's Dark Tourist. He actually stayed at the Cecil Hotel while Elisa's body was inside the water tank, and he may or may not have drank the water.
Oh my God.
The other interview is from Jake Anderson. He's a filmmaker who is currently making a documentary about Elisa Lam.
My name's David Farrier, and I'm a journalist from New Zealand.
I remembered that you and I had a conversation about the Cecil Hotel. You said you were there around the time all of this was happening.
Yeah, I was. I realized after the fact, and probably like a year afterwards, because a friend was talking about sort of the haunted history of the Cecil and then about this amazing story of this person being in the water tank. And I was like, oh my God, I think I stayed at that hotel, because it had a different name then, didn't it? It's, what's it called now? It's not the Cecil, it's something else.
It's called the Stay on Main.
That's a Stay on Main
But it's
now.
actually closed again for renovation.
Right, they're turning it into apartments or something, aren't they?
Yes, with a pool on the roof.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, they're trying to lux it up.
We'll have to go swim there, hang out.
But I checked, I checked the dates after the fact, and I was there like the second week of her being in the tank.
Oh my God, David.
I also do this thing. I also do this thing which I know a lot of Americans don't do, but I guess in New Zealand, tap water is really fine to drink and really healthy to drink.
Don't.
Just assume everywhere else in the world is exactly like New Zealand, and so whenever I'm in America, I'll drink from the tap all the time.
New York has good tap water. That's true.
The Cecil Hotel doesn't. Did you drink it while you were there?
Yeah, I drank daily. I was there for 3 nights.
Oh my God.
I drank it daily. I drank it when I woke up. I'd drink a cup. I had a cup, as always, by the bed while I go to sleep. It's sort of an OCD thing that I have to have water ready in case I wake up.
Oh, I do the same
thirsty.
thing. Same thing.
And so I drank a lot of water. I'd say I probably, over my 3 nights at the Cecil, probably drank about like 15 cups of Cecil water.
Did it taste bad? Did it come out of the faucet weird or anything?
No, the thing was, because I researched this a lot afterwards, obviously, and people that stayed there around that time started complaining about off-color water, and it was there was an issue with the water, which is how they found the body. But no, it was fine. I mean, it didn't taste great. It didn't taste fresh.
I hate this so much.
But it wasn't, I'm not a crazy person. If water tastes off, I'm not going to keep drinking it. But it wasn't great water, but it wasn't enough that it made me think I'm going to go and get some bottled water today.
It was just fine.
Right.
So I kept drinking it, and I was looking at the dates, actually, before you called. I was looking at the dates. I was there. So the body was in the tank from the 31st of January 2013 to Feb 19th. And I was there in the second week of February. So
right in the middle.
Right in the middle. So maybe the discoloration of the water happened, like closer to finding the body. I don't really know much about the science of body decomposition, but maybe the body suddenly got really, dispersed into the tank. And
the water must have been great. It was totally fine for you to drink it. Why did you stay there in the first place? Why
Yeah,
that
so
hotel?
at the time, I was working as a sort of light entertainment reporter for this tiny TV channel in New Zealand. And I was just always trying to get to Los Angeles because I love Los Angeles. And there was some sort of video game release or something. It wasn't E3 because E3 is later in the year. It was something before E3, but there was an event on that I wanted to get from New Zealand to Los Angeles for. And as usual, I'd go to my news boss and I'd pull up a little budget. And the cheaper the budget was, the more likely I'd be able to get New Zealand money to travel to Los Angeles. And so I did what I always did, and I went to whatif.com. I don't know if people still use What If. Do you remember What If?
No, I've never
No.
even heard of this. What is it?
What If is like a travel site if you're a bit on the cheap. You're like, because I guess the idea is like, what if I could go to somewhere amazing and afford it? And so you type in where you want to go, and it gives you like the cheapest options for that place.
Oh, amazing.
And so because I wanted to be in downtown Los Angeles, which I'd heard was a very up and coming area, like
Oh, sure. That's what they've been saying for 20 years.
I searched for downtown Los Angeles, and I clicked the thing on price, so it gave me the cheapest options. And I think the stay on Main wasn't the cheapest, but I think it was like the third cheapest. And I looked at the pictures, and the outside of it looked very majestic and
Yeah, it looks very cool outside.
looked beautiful. So I booked in for 3 nights, and I took that budget to my producer in New Zealand, and they said, this looks affordable. You can go. And so I went to Los Angeles for these 3 nights to cover the story, and I was shooting it myself. Yeah, the minute I arrived, I knew that it wasn't the dreamy place I'd imagined.
Did you have to share a bathroom, like a hostel type thing?
No, I didn't. Some of the rooms I remember you could share had like a shared bathroom. I was in like a standalone room, so I had my own bathroom that was just for me. But I just remember, like sometimes when you lie down on a hotel bed, you just know it's not a very good bed. And this one I kind of almost sank into with the mattress was so soft.
Oh.
Sank into it. And I remember that classic thing of a bad hotel where like the sheets were discolored.
Ew, no.
There were cockroaches in the room. Every stereotype of bad room. There were cockroaches there, and also I never got hot water out of the shower. It was always cold.
Well,
Was
I
it
wonder
brown?
why.
Oh yeah, and it had a lot of blood in it. No,
It was pure blood and hair. But
It's
otherwise,
just blood.
I mean, the weird thing about this is I have to keep reminding myself, like, it's a really sad story what happened, but it's also like it's so easy to joke about it because it's so dark. You kind of have to laugh, don't you? About the whole, like
Wait,
a body in a tank dispersing water to all those rooms and all those people showering in it. It's crazy.
it's horrible.
Insane.
Did you research the hotel at all before you got there? Because, I mean, there's a history of over, 60 murders and suicides, and Richard Ramirez stayed there.
Like literally the first Google result is Richard Ramirez Hotel Suicides. And you're like, sounds great.
This is going to sound really naive, but I didn't know any of that going into it. I did I'm trying to think what I did in 2013. Like, What If had reviews of the hotel, and they were like your typical review of like a sort of low-end hotel. Some people were like, we had a great time there. It's affordable, not great, but affordable. And other people said things like, I'm never going to stay here again. But no one mentioned any of the murders or the history or anything like that. I only found out about that afterwards. But I guess the thing that left an impression on me before I knew about the history was just walking into the lobby. Just the people in there were like they were oddballs and very.
How so?
It didn't feel safe. Like there were a lot of people just loitering that seemed like not great people. Just the feeling of who they were and how they were dressed and what they were doing. And I just think that it just had a bad vibe right from the get-go.
Interesting. The energy was off.
It's awful, isn't it? And I guess there's just enough information out there that makes it so easy to theorize about different things. Because the detail I found interesting about it is that all her clothes were in there. Right. So it's like and that plays into a thing of, did she get in there in her drug-induced mania and take her clothes off after the fact, or was she disposed of in there with everything? But the fact her clothes were in there as well, it's just such a strange detail.
It's very weird. None of it makes sense, and there's no like clear theory on what happened.
Do you have
No.
any hypothesis or anything like that? Are you interested in the case, having stayed at the hotel?
I mean, I just think, I think that looking at the number of strange people I came across during those 3 days, whether it was in the lobby or in the hallways, I mean, I feel like she was out of her mind on something. Either just mentally she had some sort of breakdown, or was obviously some sort of drug-induced situation going on. I think probably someone else in the hotel murdered her. That just seems to be, because from what I've read, like, it's not possible for a person to sort of get into that tank on their own. Like,
Right,
everything
it's
is
very
heavy
heavy.
to lift it up. So I feel like she was probably murdered and disposed of, because honestly, that hotel was just full of, as I say, it was not a good vibe in that place. So I would say murder, but then also people talk, and it's surprising that nothing solid has come out about this. It's funny when we were toying, when we were making this dark tourist show, we toyed with doing the Cecil as a topic, here's this hotel that people go to stay at just because all these awful things happen there. And we pressed into that a little bit, but yeah, the management there just made it impossible. It was pretty clear instantly that there'd be legal issues, and that's why I'd love to watch a documentary on that place. But obviously, there's a lot of, whoever owns it now certainly doesn't want that being spread too widely.
Yeah. So with Dark Tourist, you obviously have an interest in this kind of realm of bizarre. Where did that come from?
I think I just grew up obsessed with the X-Files. It was that simple.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, who didn't? I mean, I'm 36, so that kind of hit at a time when I was at like high school, and I just remember, like, you'd watch that show at night, and then the next day it's like all we'd talk about at school was the X-Files. It was like the X-Files and South Park pretty much at our school. So I was just, from that, just this idea that the world was just full of reasonably like dark, crazy things and mysteries to solve. And I grew up in a super conservative Christian house, and I guess that where everything was like, everything's great and everything's roses, and that alternative idea of things being really potentially bleak and scary and strange, like, really appealed to me. And so, yeah, that's why obviously working on Dark Tourist was a lot of fun. But I think everyone's got a bit of that. I mean, you just look at how many views the video has that the police released of this case, and people are just obsessed with sort of the darker side of life, I think, and just those kind of mysteries. It just really engages with a certain part of all of us, I think, which is, I think it's part of all of us.
That video has, like, I don't know, 10 million views, but it's like the last moments of her life. It's like watching videos of people, like, right before they die. It's creepy. Like, it's a thing that, like, I like to watch. I don't know what that is in me, where I like to, if a video's like, this is disturbing, do not watch, I will watch it. I'm just, like, curious.
Yeah, I think just vicariously, we just want a sort of little insight into death. I think it's just this weird, appealing thing. And to watch someone, I guess, in their final moments, it is, you can't help but be drawn to that in a weird way. And I think, as you said earlier, the police, saying things like, we want to maintain privacy in that, and yet they put that video out there onto the internet, or at least release it and let someone else put it on there. You're watching something that feels quite personal that you shouldn't be watching, really. Right. And as you say, it's got tens of millions of views.
Yeah, it's almost like a found footage horror movie that's real. So it becomes a form of entertainment, even though, as we discussed, it's someone's life we're watching. So it's a weird dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's so many. I mean, it's just such a strange video to watch, because it's not just someone getting into an elevator, but her behavior is so bizarre, and it's those things of her, like, looking incredibly paranoid outside the doors, like someone or something is following her. It's that kind of stuff that starts tripping your imagination, and you sort of watch it a few times, and it sort of feels like you pick up new details every time. And then for someone like me that ended up, drinking 16 cups of, it's so bleak. Like, it's so bleak. And
did you ride the elevator?
I did, yeah. I was in the elevator. I don't know. I can't recall whether there was only one or whether there were two elevators in there, but I was definitely in an elevator that looked exactly like that elevator that she was in. So I assume it could be the same one.
Did it function okay for you?
It was fine. Like the best thing about that hotel was the elevator. It
Really
was
fantastic.
the doors opened quickly and shut quickly. That was probably the most impressive thing about that entire hotel, to be honest.
You should leave that as a Yelp review.
Yeah.
It's like there were cockroaches in my room, but the elevator was very fast. I didn't have to wait at all.
I'm super curious, what sort of people move in there when these new sort of high-end sort of boutique apartments open.
How much are they gonna sell for, and who's gonna move in there? Like, what are you? I'll get an apartment there. Fuck it.
For the sake
What
of
is what is that part of downtown Los Angeles like? Like, is that sort of cool now, or is it still quite derelict?
No, I think it's near Skid Row.
Yeah, Skid Row. It's not a very safe. It's not a place you go to hang out. It's not like the arts district.
That's the other thing. That was the trip where I also like walk everywhere, and I was in New Zealand. It's like quite safe to walk, but I went on a little night walk.
No.
And ended up wandering, and I was in like flip-flops and jandals.
Oh my God.
Which I know they're a disgusting form of footwear, but it's what we do. And I flip-flopped.
Swipe left.
Bro. And that's when I guess that was my first realization that, Los Angeles has a lot of problems, and it's pretty tragic. But I just remember suddenly things were kind of fine, and then suddenly you're just there.
Yeah.
And I realized pretty quickly that wasn't a great place to be. I didn't run into any problems, but I did stumble down probably about 11 o'clock in Skid Row in shorts and jandals, which was incredibly stupid. But that was another part of that memorable Cecil experience.
Well, another thing is around that time, there was a tuberculosis outbreak.
Right.
Do you know about this?
I don't need any more revelations about that trip.
You're going to die. Okay, so there was a tuberculosis outbreak, and the test that they used for testing tuberculosis was called the Lamb Elisa.
Like, it stands for something, some acronym of something. But that's like a theory that people are like going nuts about.
Oh, that is bonkers.
It's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, one of the theories is that Elisa Lamb was a test subject for tuberculosis, and that's how she died, and that the test is called the Lamb Elisa because of that.
I could see how Reddit theorists could get obsessed with something like that. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so you're lucky that you dodged TB on your night hike, your sandal night hike.
But also you, in your show, Dark Tourist, which I've watched all the episodes, it's very great.
Thank you.
You went to like by the Fukushima plant, and you jumped in that water that supposedly has like nuclear particles in it. Are you afraid that you're gonna have children with 10 arms and drinking this water?
Yeah,
have you been to the doctor lately?
Yeah, I should probably stay away from water, I think. But no, I think probably like the one thing in that show that I regret doing was sort of stuff with water, like nuclear sort of water, as far as swimming in it. That was very much a moment of, it was sort of pressure to just do something a little bit interesting, because it had been a sort of a story that there wasn't a lot unfolding, and it just seemed like a swim was like the right thing to do. Plus, we'd been given a lot of vodka by our guide during the day, and it was like quite hot, and jumping in a lake just seemed like a good scene and seemed appealing and seemed interesting, and so we did that. But that's definitely the thing afterwards that I sort of think, will I regret that in 20 years time? And I'm sure it will be fine, but as with all things nuclear, like what you don't want is like little particles like sticking inside your body. So I didn't swallow any water. I learned from the Cecil. No water ingested. Yeah, that was probably a little bit silly doing that. Don't swim in nuclear water, and don't drink water from downtown Los Angeles hotels.
I mean, I'm just shocked you're still alive at this point.
Yeah. To do
this 20 years. So we've got this joke in the team, like we're all going to have like a little Dark Tourist reunion in 20 years time when we're all like riddled with cancer and in wheelchairs on our way out. So that's going to be our reunion time.
So what are you doing a new season of Dark Tourist, or what are you working on next?
We're figuring it out at the moment what we're doing next. We're kind of like, if we ever did it again, I think we'd want the whole same team together again. So we're all kind of busy on other things at the moment. I'm kind of working on another documentary at the moment, sort of in the early stages of that. So There might be some more dark tourists at some point, but it felt like it felt like a good standalone season. And if we come up with like
Yeah.
enough good places to go, maybe we'll do more. But I'm happy taking a little break from that at the moment.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to know what the new documentary is, or is it hush hush?
It's kind of hush hush at the moment, which is such a boring answer, but
That's okay.
it's another, I suppose it's like another investigation, a little bit like what Tickled was, like a bit like what you guys are doing, like just a bit of a deep dive into a weird internet thing.
Tickled was one of my favorite documentaries of all time. It's
It is
so amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. The trouble with Tickled is it was such a lucky story to stumble on that I
Right.
know I'll never get something that good again. Like, as a journalist, it was like the dream thing at the dream time to find, and I just know that sort of that level of sort of madness will never strike again. But it's cool. It's cool having it out there, and there's still people that get in touch with me that have sort of just discovered it because it's sitting on various streaming services, and people are discovering it now, and they've got new stories about David D'Amato or new stories about that world that they'll message in with. So there was just someone a couple of months ago that had kept all their letters they'd got from Terry Tickle,
No.
desperately wanting tickling videos. And this guy explained this really interesting story where he was having a really difficult time at school. And so he went to the school guidance counselor, and David D'Amato was really helpful to him in getting through his issues. But at that exact time he was being counseled by David D'Amato, he started getting letters from Terry Tickle wanting tickling videos. So while in real life,
What?
D'Amato was like helping him with this problem, D'Amato was like rushing home and like writing his letters as like a 16-year-old like hottie, and mailing this boy, trying to get him to make tickling videos, and he still had all the letters. So there's still stories that like keep coming up and people getting in touch. So that's kind of fun when that happens. And it's also for those people that they kind of get a little bit of closure on this sort of weird thing that happened that they could never explain. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Where can people watch Tickled if they want? What streaming services is it on?
I think in America it's on HBO Go. I think it's sitting there, and I think the rest of the world it's sitting on Netflix.
And what about Dark Tourist?
That is on worldwide on Netflix.
Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
No, it's a bit. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. It'd be cool to catch up with you guys down the line.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Bye. Good luck writing.
My name is Jake Anderson. I've been researching this case for about 5 years, so I got quite a bit to say, but I'll let you ladies lead the way.
In your Kickstarter, you said you want to know if the documentary, or you want the documentary to answer the question, is it a true crime mystery, a profile of mental illness, a paranormal investigation? And what is your leading theory?
It's certainly both profile of mental illness, and I think there's some form of criminal negligence involved. I can't go
Right.
so far to say that it's homicide at this point. That's certainly possible. The paranormal angle we can get into.
Right.
I actually run a paranormal site, but it's more of like a balance of skepticism. You know, there's just a lot of new interesting research going on about the relationship between consciousness and the universe that I think is usually not brought up in some of the more esoteric conversations about paranormal activity. But the short answer to your question is that it's kind of all three.
Interesting.
Wow.
How did you
All
initially come across the case, and what interested you about it, you know, in terms of other cases? What kind of stood out to this one for you?
Right. Well, this was my introduction to true crime. I've always had kind of like a morbid mind, you know, researching serial killers and stuff like that.
Oh my God, you're like
This kind of-
Melissa. Melissa loves that stuff.
Yeah, this was kind of the first case when I saw that elevator video. I was like, oh my God. And then I just took a deep dive into it. And then
Right.
just
Yeah.
ever
The
since
elevator video is what set off most people. And part of it was when I first watched it, I was like, why are people so obsessed with this video? Obviously, it had to do with the fact that she was missing at that point. But the video itself is blurry, it's pixelated,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot happens. Quite frankly, her behavior is not as bizarre as a lot of people would say. I mean, I act like that all the time. And some of her hand movements are very clearly something called psychomotor agitation,
What's
which is a
that?
symptom of bipolar disorder, which she had,
Oh,
in which I subsequently read all of her blogs and documented all that. But to stick with the videotape, I think the surveillance video triggers an anxiety in people. I think it has to do with obviously it's just a creepy piece of video, and trying to anticipate what was going on in that hallway. Clearly, she felt pursued by something, but was it in her head? Was there someone out in the hall? Was she feeling the spirit of Richard Ramirez, who lived on that exact hallway when he
same
stayed
floor?
at the Cecil Hotel? Yeah, and Jack Unterweger, the second serial killer who lived there, lived only one floor down. More importantly, those upper floors of the Cecil Hotel are reserved for full-time residents.
Right.
So it's unclear as to why she was even up there to begin with. Well, I'll return to why I think the surveillance tape is so interesting later, but
That's what kind of sparked your interest in the first place?
that's of course that's what's I mean that was the trigger. Without that surveillance tape, this was a unique internet-based phenomenon to begin with. Nancy Grace, none of the talking heads on TV were interested in this case. This was internet, and it was because of the surveillance. And I think it speaks to a certain anxiety about the fact that our final moments could be captured and streamed for millions of people to watch. I think triggers a kind of anxiety in people.
It's like the original
that.
found footage horror movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, we got to get into some of the conspiracy theories, because that's part of the case that intrigued me the most is what I can only call certain kind of pathological delusion that's come out in certain conspiracy theorists that I've talked to personally in their interpretations of the case. There are people that believe it was actually a snuff film.
Really?
I
Let's
haven't
get
heard
into
that.
that. No, love it.
Yeah.
Well, not love
It's-
it, but you know what I mean.
I haven't heard that
No, I
theory.
haven't heard
Snuff
that.
film is so awesome.
No, I
Yeah.
hadn't heard that before. Really?
Yeah, no, there's all kinds of strange theories.
That's
so
crazy.
it was definitely the surveillance. It was definitely the surveillance tape. The discovery of the body, of course. The police did 2 searches of the roof. They set up a command center in the Cecil Hotel, and they searched the roof, which, according to Santiago Lopez, the maintenance worker who found the body, the lid to the tank would have been open at that time, according to him in his sworn deposition. So the police searched the roof once by themselves, then with a canine unit, and did not find anything.
Yeah,
And,
that's shocking that the dog didn't smell anything.
Right.
But I mean, she
it's
was
hard to believe.
submerged, so I don't know.
Now, at this point, it probably would have been, I don't know what the police would have been looking for. She had been missing at this point for a few days. Statistically, after 72 hours, missing person cases usually turn into homicide cases or something like that. There's nothing else on the roof besides those tanks. So it's very unclear how they would have missed that. I would subsequently found some troubling evidence about some of this stuff, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, you said you have interviews with multiple people connected, like LAPD informants, Cecil Hotel management.
Right.
Can you say who those people are?
Yeah, well, it's important for one to realize that it's been virtually impossible to get anyone to speak about the case. The main detectives will not speak about the case. In fact, Detective Greg Stern, he blocked me on Twitter for simply simply telling him I found some troubling information. I would like to discuss the case with you.
No way.
And he blocked me. The other main detective, Wallace Tennille, whose own son was murdered in Los Angeles, like 8 years ago or something. He retired, and I've been reluctant to reach out to him. I don't know. The same way I've been reluctant to reach out to the family, because the family very clearly been traumatized from this and doesn't want to speak about it. And I respect that, and I don't want to bother them. But I believe the case at this point is transcended into a zeitgeist where it's already out there. All the damage, all the stigmatization against her is already out there. So what I wanted to do is tell a more humanizing portrait of Elisa. But I'm getting off topic. You wanted to know about specific contacts. I have not been able to get a main detective to speak on the case. In fact, the same guy, Greg Stern, his partner who worked slightly on the case, his name is Detective Tim Marcia. He was the only detective. A journalist named Josh Dean wrote a great article about the case on Medium. And he got Tim Marcia to roll out, a very stereotypical Occam's razor quote that the law enforcement, they literally kneeled at the altar of Occam's razor. So I reached out to Tim Marcia about the case, and I was like, look, I'm not trying to proliferate conspiracy theories here. I'm not trying to cause any trouble, which of course was a lie. But I said, this is about the stigmatization of mental illness, and I'd wonder what your thoughts are on how this case has become such a big deal. And he's like, well, Jake, I have some thoughts on this, but out of respect for the detectives, I'm going to check with them first. Sure enough, he came back and said, Greg Stearns has a blanket no-talk policy about this case. Now, this is a closed case. This is not a cold case. This is closed.
Interesting.
So the fact that they're being so secretive about it is extremely suspicious at best, and they claims that the reason is to protect the family and to protect Elisa's privacy. If you're trying to protect Elisa's privacy, why did you broadcast a surveillance video over final moments?
Yeah, that's weird.
For 50 million people? And the point of a tape like that is for identification and evidence. The tape does not identify her. It's blurry and pixelated. You couldn't make a positive ID from that. And you don't see anyone else in the video, even though we know that there's another surveillance video that shows her entering the hotel with two men. They didn't show us that one.
Oh.
That's fascinating. Were they carrying the books? Was that two men carrying books for her from the last bookstore? What was the one with her with the men?
Now, the other surveillance is supposedly she enters with two men and they give her a box. But the fact of the matter is that she was with other people. I did speak with a man who at the last bookstore who previously no one had spoke to. Previously, the only person who said they had spoken to Elisa on that last day was the manager of the last bookstore. And she had only positive things to say, which was lovely. Right. But I talked to another man who interacted with Elisa who said that she was exhibiting very, very distressing, troubling behavior. So basically, I think this is leading towards mental illness and foul play are not mutually exclusive here.
Right.
That in fact, many times people become bigger targets of predators when they have mental illness.
Oh, sure.
Totally.
Definitely.
You had mentioned before also that, people like Nancy Grace and other talking heads had kind of avoided this topic or her, this whole conspiracy. Why do you think that is?
They don't have a clear villain. Normally they like to have a Scott Peterson or an O.J. Simpson and also she was not white. And there's an entire, syndrome called, I think it's called missing white woman syndrome or something like that. They don't like, mainstream media does not like to delve into issues of mental illness, which it's impossible to discuss this case without discussing that. So yeah, I think it's that, and I don't know. It's curious. I'm hoping that with some of the new, evidence I have, hopefully it can get back on the radar a little bit. I'm not sure that this case can be solved, frankly, because I think there is a cover-up going on. But I would say that the purpose of the web sleuth movement at this point, to me, seems to be largely about transparency. And I spoke with Trisha Griffith, who runs the website Web Sleuths. She told me she knows for a fact that she traces the IP addresses of people that log into the site. And she knows that the police keep track of what's going on these Web Sleuth forums.
What?
And hopefully this is leading to a more decentralized, democratized criminal justice where police cannot conceal information anymore.
So what do you think the Elisa Lam cover-up is?
I do think she was killed by an employee of the hotel or someone in the hotel knows what happened. Someone put her body in the tank and then released the tape to say, oh, what, she was crazy. So who knows what happened to her?
Right. So there's a couple of different theories that I have. Okay. I do have a conclusion. I mean, I don't.
We'd love to know all the theories and your conclusion. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to be a little restrained simply because some of the information I have, I need to be vetted by a legal team.
Oh, please.
So,
Sure.
So that I don't get my ass suit off.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that there's definitely I definitely believe there is a criminal cover-up going on based on some information I found. I think there's a couple different ways that this could have gone down. We interviewed a forensics expert, an independent forensics expert, Dr. John Hizero. He has an impeccable track record. And he looked at the autopsy and said, there's no water in her lungs.
Oh.
There's no water in her stomach. There's no water in her sinuses.
Oh my God.
And she was floating face up, which is very unusual in drowning cases.
Oh.
So he doesn't think she drowned. And if that's true, that literally changes the entire thing.
Yeah.
That means she was dead before she was in the water tank.
Shit.
Now that's the body dump theory, which is that she died possibly, conjecture. The autopsy did not check for date rape drugs.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about that.
So it's possible that she died elsewhere in the hotel and was concealed there. One of the issues that we bring up, that I bring up in the book and in the documentary, I worked with this guy named John Lorden who runs a YouTube channel called Brain Scratch, which is really an awesome true crime channel. And he uncovered that there was actually a corporate merger going on the week that her body was found. Tens of millions of dollars worth of reinvestment. They were being basically
I mentioned this. Yeah.
absorbed. There would have been a financial incentive for them to not have a body show up at the hotel that week. The memo announcing this came out like a few days after she was found.
Right. I found that memo.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Furthermore, I do think that it's certainly possible that there's some kind of financial quid pro quo going on between the Cecil Hotel and the LAPD. It's hard to trust the autopsy at this point. It's commonly said that, look, there was no trauma to the body. Well, first of all, that's wrong. There was pooling of blood around her anus.
Oof.
Oh,
that
weird.
has been
No.
written off as when a body dies and decomposes, the gases inside the body can force things outward.
Right.
So that's their medical explanation. Well, Dr. Hizero says that it's actually a little bit more indicative of sexual assault.
Right.
Moreover, the medical examiner who released the autopsy has subsequently been sued in court for falsifying an autopsy in a different case.
What?
Really?
Oh, no.
So there's just a whole constellation of anomalies that really, to me, if we're gonna invoke Occam's razor here, to me, Occam's razor sides more on the side of a criminal cover-up.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you're making this documentary. You have a Kickstarter. Can people still contribute to it, or?
The Kickstarter is done. We raised $30,000 and we shot a lot of footage. But, Kickstarter, the point of Kickstarter is to kickstart a project.
Right.
To make a full documentary, we need more funds. What I've been working on is writing the book, which is going to be released sometime this year by Kensington. And
great.
I think that that's going to help kind of convince people to reconsider the criminal element of it. When I got involved in this case, I believe that this was an accident. I believe that this was an example of people not understanding mental illness.
Right.
And that was my operating principle for a while. And especially when I started getting into some of the conspiracy theories, people thinking that someone used an invisibility cloak to hunt her down, or that there was some satanic cabal that was performing a ritual.
Yeah.
Or that the New World Order was using tuberculosis for a false flag biological attack.
The Lam-Elisa test.
There is an interesting synchronicity here, which is that there was an outbreak of tuberculosis.
Yeah, it is a weird coincidence.
It's bizarre.
It's
right?
very weird.
It's utterly just absurd. There's also something called illusory pattern perception, where you connect different anomalies and make them into a pattern that makes the world make more sense to you. There's that element to it. But I totally believe that this was a mental illness, and I went through her blogs. read hundreds of pages of her writing. Elisa, she was a really incredible writer, an incredible mind.
Yeah, her blogs are still up, and she's like pretty funny, like very. She wrote a lot of funny, clever things.
Absolutely, she was very clever, and she was also very brave to publicly document her battle with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
To be transparent, and this comes out in the book. For me, it's a personal thing because that illness runs in my family. My aunt had it. I think I'm kind of on the spectrum with it as well.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can identify with that. Mental illness is something that, we don't really take all that seriously in this culture, or it's viewed as like a pick yourself up by your bootstraps type mentality.
Right.
The arc that happened is I was like, this is all a bunch of hogwash. This is stigmatization of mental illness 101. And then the more I dug into it, the more I started just finding these anomalies that, no explanation for some of these anomalies. And the sheer amount of silence, it's almost like this orchestrated silence from all three vector points of information, the police, the hotel, and the family. Now, again, I put no blame on the family whatsoever. They have every right to hide out and not talk to anyone. They've been traumatized enough. The police and the hotel, this isn't the Kennedy assassination,
Right.
Just tell us what happened. Explain the surveillance tape. Explain why there's footage missing from the surveillance tape.
Yeah, that's strange. The
Yeah.
time code is a little like jumps.
The time code straight up cuts.
Yeah.
There's a certain moment where the time code cuts, the minute hand changes twice in 7 seconds. Now, unless it's a motion activated surveillance camera, which it could be, and if that's the case, they should just release a statement saying that. But if it's not, then, and it happened to happen right as she leaves the frame, which from a video editing perspective would be the exact perfect time to cut because nothing would change in the frame. And that could be when someone entered the hallway.
Right. She could be talking to someone that whole time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, you saying that there might be a correlation between the LAPD and the Cecil Hotel that's, decades or whatever long could be an explanation for something like that.
The police, historically, according to people I've spoken to there, are very reluctant to even go inside the hotel. If something's being covered up, I'm determined to find out what it is because I think it's larger than just, one person. I came to the conclusion that if this is just a case of mental illness, if the stigmatization of it, that's really bad. What would be way worse than that is the police using someone's mental illness to cover up for a crime.
Right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
This has been so illuminating. Is there anything else you want to say, closing, or that you want people to know that you think they should know about this case?
No.
That's so confident. I love that.
No, you've pretty much explained
Yeah,
a lot.
We've gone in depth. This has been so wonderful. Thank you so much, Jake. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Look for the book to come out later this year because if what I just said was illuminating, and maybe it wasn't, or maybe it was, but there's about 100 times more in the book. So.
And where can people find your Kickstarter campaign?
If you Google Kickstarter, what happened to Elisa Lam, you can find it. You can find me on Twitter at OverTheMoonSF. You can also email me. Actually, no, I probably don't want random people emailing me. They can message through the Kickstarter campaign.
Thank you so much, Jake. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. You're very knowledgeable about this.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for interviewing me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
All right, guys. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
I'm Allie Siegel.
And I'm Melissa Stetton.
Erios. Powered by Acast.